My name's Helen and I'd like to welcome you on behalf of Heritage Learning and the Ferens Art Gallery to this online workshop into portraiture. During this video, there might be times where you want to discuss the things that you see or the things that you hear. Please feel free to press pause to do this. There'll also be times when I'll ask you to press pause to answer specific questions that I've asked. Let's begin by thinking about what you already know. What is a portrait? Pause the video now and talk to your partners about what you know already about portraiture. Okay, well, I'd like to describe a portrait as a visual description of a person. It's a way that an artist might represent somebody through art. And sometimes this representation might not be as realistic as perhaps a photograph might be, because an artist can also represent the character, the personality and the mood of the subject in the portrait in many different ways, and we'll have a little look at some of those later on in the video. Throughout history, artists have made portraits. Why do you think that is? Well, some reasons might include just a means for an artist to show their skill. Portraits have also been made so that artists can tell about different ways of life, different people living in different places and different times. They can also be used to make a record that the subject of the portrait wants to leave for others when they're not there. Portraits can be used to capture a moment in someone's life, and we do that quite a lot nowadays, don't we? We use our phones and we take photographs when we're doing things and post them on Instagram and Snapchat and Facebook to show people what's happening to us at that time in our life. Portraits were also painted to show a person's power or position in society or their wealth. We're going to have a little look at some portraits now that are taken from the Ferens collection. At the moment, the Ferens Gallery is not open to the public. You can go online and look on their website at the art collections that they have in the gallery. I'm sure that when it opens, a lot of you will want to take that opportunity to go and see if you can find some portraits in their exhibitions. This first painting is by Joseph Wright of Derby. He lived and painted around 250 years ago, and the portrait is titled Maria from Stern. It was painted in 1777. Joseph Wright is one of the most highly thought of 18th century British portrait painters. The lady in this painting is called Maria, and she's a character from a fictional novel called A Sentimental Journey Through France and Italy that was written at the time the painting was painted. There are some questions now that I'd like you to think about and to talk about relating to what you see in the portrait. I'll go through the questions and then I'll leave you to discuss them for a while. How do you think Maria is feeling in this painting? What clues are there in the painting to her emotions? How is the painting arranged? We call this the composition of the painting. Describe her posture and her facial expression. What is she doing? What else can you see in the painting around her? And what do you think that she is thinking? Why might that be? Pause the video and discuss your answers to these questions. Welcome back. I'm sure you had some really good thoughts about that painting, and now we're going to look at one that's quite different. The one we looked at previously was quite realistic. It looks to me as though the artist had tried to make the portrait look as near to real life as he could. This next painting that I've chosen is a little different. It's by an artist called Percy Wyndham Lewis, and it's a self-portrait. That means the artist has painted it of himself. He painted this one about 100 years ago, so it's a lot more modern than the last one. Percy Wyndham Lewis was involved with a group of artists who developed an abstract style of painting. That means that things didn't have to look realistic by the way that they're painted, and the shapes and the lines and the colours are often used to give you a feeling or an emotion about the subject. He was influenced by the modern machine age of the time. Here are some questions for you to think about and discuss regarding this painting. What are your first impressions of the portrait? What type of shapes and lines can you see in the painting? How do these sharp, angular shapes and lines make you feel? Are the colours realistic? Describe the colours you see and explain what they make you feel like. What might the artist be trying to say by the colours he uses? Does the portrait look realistic? What do you think the artist is trying to say about himself here? What kind of character might he be? What mood might he be in? And why do you think this is? Pause the video and talk to your class about these questions. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to give you a little demonstration on how you can draw a face, getting all the features in the right positions. So what I always do, because I don't want a tiny little something in the middle, I just mark out more or less where the top of the head's going to go, the chin and the sides of the face, okay? And then I know what I'm aiming for. Doesn't matter if I miss it a little bit. And then the head starts wider at the top. Just bring that down. And it goes narrower towards the chin, the jawline here. And the same at this side. You'll notice that I'm doing it very, very lightly, very, very sketchily, because then if I'm not happy with it, I can alter it. Right, once I've got my face shape drawn in, I'll just go over it a little bit so you can see it better. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to divide it. I'm going to divide it into sections, because these sections will help us place all the features. So I'm going to divide it in half very, very lightly. You'll do it more lightly than this, and we'll rub these lines out at the end. And then I'm going halfway between the top of the head and the tip of the chin, which I think is probably about there. And I'm going to draw a line across there, okay? And this line is the eye line. Now, most people think the eyes are towards the top of the head, but actually most of the top of the head is covered by our hair, so we don't get a good sense of the position of the eyes. So I'm going to place my eyes, just mark out the beginning and the end of the eyes so that I can keep them about the same sort of size. Place them on this line, so they're going right, the line is going through the centre of each eye, okay? Same at the other side. People have different eye shapes. Some eyes are wider, rounder, and some are narrower and thinner. So you'll need to think about your subject, what sort of shape you're going to draw. I'm just going to do a little indication of the lids there. And then I'm going to place the centre of the eye, the iris in, which touches the top and the bottom lid. So don't do it too small, okay? It's quite large there. Okay, now the rest of the features. We're now looking at this section of the face, and I'm going to divide it in half again. So I'm going to put in another halfway line. And this halfway line is where the tip of the nose comes. Another common mistake is that people do the noses way too small. Your nose is quite long. Oh, let's put the eyebrows in first, because this eyebrow sits on the eye socket, and that's kind of where the nose, the lines from the nose, follow down from. If I just quickly map in where the eyebrows are going to go, and then you'll see that the nose is going to come from there. It goes in and then it starts to come out. And the same at the other side. And I'm making sure that this centre line is down the centre of my nose, so it's fairly symmetrical. And we'll just bring the bottom part of the nose round here. Okay, so we're just mapping that in. Okay, now we're left with this bottom section of the face, and I'm going to divide that in half again with another line. And this line is where the bottom lip is going to sit. So I'm just going to place my curve for my bottom lip on that line, like that. And the top lip is just beneath the nose, goes up a little bit and then out about as far as the middle of the eye, about that far. Again, we're all different, so you need to look at your subject and decide a little bit more detail about how that mouth is going to go. But just for now, I'm going a bit of an average. Okay, so there we've got the lips in there. Now, the next thing is to place the ears, and the ears begin level with your eyes. Be worth having a look in a mirror and just making sure that you prove that to yourself. And the ear just comes down. It comes down about as far as the bottom of the nose, really. I'm just indicating the shadows on the ears. So we'll start on the other side, level with the top of the eyes, and just coming down the side of the mouth as far as, down the side of the face as far as the bottom of the nose. Okay, now you might still think that looks a little bit strange. You can then go in and add detail. So I can put the pupil in the eyes. I can add the iris. I could start putting some eyelashes, and it all starts to look a little bit more realistic when you start to add the detail. And what really finishes it off is when you focus on the hair. So let's see, we'll give this character some lines of long flowing hair. And the neck is wider than you think. Your neck sort of comes down the side from your ear. Let's put some hair on the other side so it doesn't look as though she's had a strange shaved haircut. So just an indication of where the hair's going to go. Okay, so if you follow those easy steps and guidelines, then that should help you get all of the facial features more or less in proportion as you draw your own portraits. So what I want you to do now is have a go. And what I suggest you do is you go through the instructions on the video that you've just watched again, and maybe pause after each section, and then you can do your drawing section by section. Start with the face shapes and then build on from that bit by bit. You might find that really helpful. So good luck and have a go. Thank you. Okay, so now we've got to the final section of our workshop on portraiture, and in this last section you are going to create your own original portrait. And for your subject, that's the portrait, the person whose portrait you're going to create. It could be yourself, so it could be a self-portrait, or it could be somebody close to you, somebody that you know, and you know well, a family member or a friend. It could also be a personality, somebody who's quite famous, somebody that you know quite a lot about. Now, the reason that you need to know quite a lot about these people is because the main emphasis in this piece of artwork is going to be either the mood or the personality or the emotions of the subject that you're going to use. So that's where you need to start. Once you've chosen your subject, think about the emotions or the personality or character that you're going to try and put across in your portrait work. And spend some time on this early planning, because the thinking and the planning that you put in will have a major impact on how successful your final portrait's going to be. So when you think about the character and the personality, you're going to think, what's the best way that I'm going to put that across in a piece of artwork? And the things that we use, our tools as artists, are colour, line and shape. And these are really important because you can show all kinds of things through your choice of colour and the use of line and shape. So for example, let me think, if I'd chosen a character who was very angry and uptight about things, then my colours, the colours I choose, might be strong, powerful colours, but they might also be dark colours if there's a sort of darkness about that personality. So I might use dark blues, dark purples, some black and grey, but I might use a little bit of red brightness in there as a contrast, flecks of anger maybe. And then my lines, I think I would use lines that are quite angular, sharp, pointed lines and shapes. Whereas if the character or the personality that I was going to do was maybe opposite to that, very peaceful, very calm, maybe even sad and lonely, then my colours would be quite different, and I would probably use really soft colours. Blue, I think, is a colour that depicts those kind of emotions. So maybe a whole range of blues and greys, those kind of colours might be the choice that I would use. And the shapes and the lines would be softer as well, more curved, not sharp, angular, as in the last example. What I want you also to do is have a little look back at the Wyndham Lewis portrait that we looked at earlier on, because his work is more abstract, and that's what I think that yours will become, because it's less about looking exactly like the person that you are drawing, and it's more about depicting what they are like, what their personality, character and mood is like. So yours will be more of an abstract or semi-abstract piece of work. Then, when you've got all of the planning done and you feel that you're ready to start, there's a few things I'd like to go through to help you be successful in your final piece. Choose the background colour, because I think that's important as well in a piece of artwork. And then you're going to be working in pastels. Pastels are great for using in these kind of ways, because you can put pressure on the paper with a pastel and it can be very, very dense and thick. You can smudge it, and you can also use it with little pressure on and blend those colours together nicely. When you begin like we did when we did our face drawing, and map it out so that you're not doing a tiny little portrait in the corner of the paper, so that you're actually using your paper. Don't use pencil to map out and plan your outlines. Use a pastel, and try and choose a pastel that's a similar colour to your background paper, because that way it won't be easy to see, and if you make any mistakes it'll be really easy to conceal, and you'll just go over the top with the actual colours that you're going to use in the portrait. So I'm sure that you're really going to enjoy it. I'm sure that you'll create some wonderful portraits, and then when you've finished your portrait, all artists need to sit back and have a little look at what they've done and have a think about what they've done and evaluate it. And the evaluation process is really important, because it helps us then as we go on to create many other pieces of artwork. So I'm going to leave you with some evaluation questions at the end of this video, which I'd like you to go through either with a partner or with your class. It's important to think about how you feel about your final piece, but it's also important to get other people's thoughts and feelings about your final piece. And that's something that we try to do as artists. We try to create emotion and response from other people. So you'll find that really interesting. So thank you for being with us in this workshop, and enjoy your final piece of artwork. Enjoy being a portrait artist yourself. Thank you. Bye.